Right, 12:30. Welcome everybody to this week's weekly Wilmington Rotary meeting for September 8th, 2020. Thanks for being here. And like Cleve gave us a heads up a minute ago, we are using the names on your pictures on Zoom to kind of keep up with our attendance, to know who we're missing, to know who we're seeing. So be aware of that and try to make sure that your names at the beginning of each time you log on to Zoom for our meetings, make sure your full name is there. It looks like almost everybody has their full name. An easy way to change that, and Cleve just gave us this a minute ago, is to hover over your picture, click on the three dots, go down to rename. When it pulls down a drop-down menu, you can put in your name, and that will just change it for this meeting that you're in. So if anybody is missing a first or last name or has iPad, something listed up there, they can make that change really easy. Thanks. We're going to go ahead and get started with the invocation, and Susan is going to take over. And Susan, when you go to the Pledge of Allegiance, I've got a huge flag that I'm going to hold up. So at least one of the windows will have the flag so that we can give the pledge with the flag in front of us. Thanks.
Thank you. That's awesome. And I apologize in advance. I'm sitting at my desk, and if a child wanders in, just give me a minute. My office administrator has stepped out. So let's begin with our invocation, and let us pray. Father of all faiths, we come to you today with gratitude and with the realization that we can take for granted what we can be only dreamed about in other parts of the world. We pray that by keeping this ever present in our heads and hearts and minds, we develop perspective and become more giving, more tolerant, more appreciative of that with which we are blessed. And for those who work to improve the lives of those who struggle for basic human needs and dignity, and for their freedom, we ask your blessing. Help us to remember that of those to whom much is given, much is required. Direct us to find ways to give. And finally, we ask special blessings for those who serve by putting themselves in the, and finally, we ask special blessings for those who serve by putting their safety and well-being of others over themselves. Amen. I pledge.
You can also unmute yourself.
Good. Wonderful. Right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, Robbie.
Thanks. Wonderful, Susan. Thank you so much. All right, and thanks for everybody being here again. Announcements. We're gonna do, actually I left something out. Guests. Do we have any guests today? If you have a guest, if you're a Rotarian in our club and you have a guest joining you by Zoom or with you, I'm gonna take a second and be quiet and let you unmute yourself and introduce your guest.
Robbie, this is Melissa.
Hey, Melissa.
I have a guest today that I would like to introduce, and my guest is April Jones. I think I looked and saw her on here. April was a member of our club formerly, and I was her sponsor. And I met April years ago when she was an insurance agent with Farm Bureau. Now she has her own insurance agency. I think she's building a new building in Hampstead. So she has done quite well, top performer. And I just am happy to have her interested in being a member of our club again. And I have people to sign off on her application, but I do need one other person. And since we don't get together in person, it's kind of hard to do that. So if someone else would like to help me out with that, I have Donna and Robbie. If someone else knows April and would like to help sign off on that, I want to get that application in process since she's already been a member of our club in good standing, and very excited to have her with us today.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. And April, welcome. It's great to see you on our Zoom meeting again. I know that we get to work together all the time, and I'm looking forward to you having the time to get back involved with Rotary. Anybody else have a guest?
Robbie, it's Lynn Boney.
Hey, Lynn.
And my cousin Jack Clark is here again.
Is he with you on the same Zoom screen?
He's not. I think he's on the third screen, maybe.
Oh, I see him now.
Right.
I'm technically a visiting Rotarian from the Bethesda Chevy Chase Rotary Club, Washington, D.C.
Jack, welcome back.
Thank you.
Rich Gelber, I'm visiting from New Jersey, moving down very soon.
Welcome, Rich. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
President Robbie, this is Mike. I believe we have Terry Everett with us visiting once again, and her application has all the signatures and is in Elliot's hands, our Secretary Elliot, and ready for processing.
Thanks for that introduction, Mike. And Terry, thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to Terry being a member. She has been unfortunately, had to be the guinea pig for running through this gauntlet of Zoom, being the first new member since we've had Zoom meetings. And her patience has been unbelievable. She's had a great attitude the whole time. And I'm excited to have her as a member of the club as soon as we can get that finished. All right, any other guests or visiting Rotarians? We're covering it all. All right, we're going to move right into health and happiness with Melissa.
Okay, I hope no one's waiting for a musical rendition. That stopped with my dad, actually. So thanks, Brett, for making it tough on me this time. Okay, for birthdays, we only have one birthday this week that I could find, and that is Rob Lapp on the 11th. So happy birthday, Rob. For health issues, we do have some ongoing issues that are still actually ongoing with Joe and Carolyn. Joe's eye issues are still around and his lung cancer has returned. Carolyn had a cancerous spot removed from her arm and is waiting for it to heal enough for her to undergo radiation. So please keep those in your thoughts and prayers. John Murkison is recovering from COVID-19. And Ken Willits is still in the hospital at Chapel Hill. I think this is 30-some days so far. These Rotarians and spouses of Rotarians need our support. If you can send a card or a text message or a phone call, I know it helps a tremendous amount because they're going through a lot. And that's what Rotary is for, to support each other. So please remember these folks whenever you can. Now for happiness, I only received one thing from happiness, and that was from Mary Martin, who is our unofficial traveling Rotarian. She's actually busted loose from home and is in Cancun for a 12-day vacation at an all-inclusive resort. So we can all feel really sorry for her. The big news for the week, of course, and I don't think Wilbur is on here, but we are recording this, so I've asked Ann to make sure he sees this. Is the fact that our Wilmington was designated as the first World War II heritage city. And this has special meaning to me for a couple of reasons. First of all, I want to show you a picture. This is my dad. And my dad was a Marine and he served in the Pacific during World War II. And this is my uncle, his brother, Jasper. And Jasper's name is actually on the USS North Carolina, engraved at the bottom as a person who died on that ship during World War II. So World War II is very near and dear to my heart. The Heritage Award was presented by President Donald Trump, who thanked and congratulated our own Wilbur Jones. This is a 12-year effort that Wilbur has undertaken to make this happen. And he also received an unexpected salute from the Commander-in-Chief, which I think caught him quite unaware. During World War II, Wilmington was known as the defense capital of the state, and our city had an immense impact on shipbuilding. It hosted a USO building, 5 military branches, a fighter plane training area, and was headquarters of a railroad company. So I came up with a few facts that I thought you all might be interested in. I certainly was. First of all, the number 3. There were 3 prisoner of war camps from February 1944 to 1946. 191 New Hanover County men died in service, plus 57 with an area connection. And 3 of those men were killed in action at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. 243 vessels were built by the North Carolina Shipbuilding Company, now the state port. Most of those were Liberty ships, and at its height of production, the company employed 23,000 people. On December 6, 1941, the Zebulon B. Vance was launched as the shipyard's first Liberty ship, and this was on the day before the attack on Pearl Harbor. 35,000 uniformed soldiers were hosted at the USO each week from 1941 to 1945. That's a lot of people. And our county population was 100,000 in 1943. And you think about that compared to today, 3 years earlier, it was at 43,000. So it grew tremendously during that period of time the war was going on. And there were 5,495 public housing units constructed to help with that population surge. And I think that Mayor Sappho has said that there are plans in the works to honor Wilbur's efforts locally in securing us as a heritage city designation. And that will likely be in a ceremony at the USO, which is very appropriate. So I just thought that was such a big thing for Wilmington and our county, and I wanted to highlight that. And
and Melissa, I thank you, and I will make sure that Wilbur sees this. He's not here because there are so many interviews from all over the country and all the news media that want to chat with him. But one thing, besides the fact that riding in the presidential motorcade with all the police escorts, you really feel important. I mean, it was really cool. But we are the only high school in all of America with 2 Medal of Honor recipients. That was one of his highlights, and that's really
Halliburton and Murray. That was very important.
Yes. Thank you so much.
That was a big deal. And I remember when Wilbur started with Mike McIntyre years ago. He's been on it for a while, but Wilbur doesn't give up.
He does not.
So that's it for Health and Happiness today. Thanks for letting me share.
Melissa, that was awesome and so interesting to see all those facts. We're all very proud of Wilbur, and our thoughts are with the people that we have in the hospital or who aren't doing well with our club. And was that Ann, was that high school, New Hanover High School?
It was. Yes, it was.
All right. Go Wildcats.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and make sure Wilbur sees this. You know, it's so cool what he's done. Thank you. All right. We are going to move into some announcements, and they're real quick today. We already talked about the Zoom meeting names. We've hit it. That's the 3rd time. Try and keep your meeting name correct on your Zoom meeting so we can know who's in attendance and who we're missing. Wheel of Honor feedback. I talked a lot about this last week, and once I finished the meeting, I was disappointed that I think I talked about it a lot and not really got my point across. But in a follow-up email, I did try and clear up what I was looking for feedback on the Wheel of Honor. And it was not whether we were going to have it or not. We are not going to have it this year. My feedback I wanted to know is how people felt about their donations that they had already contributed and what we needed to do going forward with those donations. Obviously, that money's already been earmarked for our budget for this year, and it was a little less than we had in other years, but we're going to go forward with that. With the feedback I received, it was overwhelmingly positive. Everybody was happy. Everybody understands that when we do a fundraiser, it's not so that we can sit at a meal or do something like that. It's so that this club can keep doing the great projects that we do year in and year out. So we're going to stay on that course. We are going to do something to move forward with those people that we wanted to honor with flags. And that's something that needs, a few weeks to put together. But I'm looking forward to do something this year between now and the end of this calendar year to honor those people that people in our club obviously loved and cared about enough to have a flag in their honor at the Wheel of Honor. So we'll be seeing something with that coming up. You guys just be on the lookout for that going forward. The virtual fundraiser, the raffle that Donna's putting on with her committee is going well. Anybody that has prizes, please reach out to a committee member or Donna. We're looking for large caliber prizes, $300, $400, $500 or more, because the raffle tickets appear that they will have be a $100 ticket. And I don't know that that's established yet, but I'm thinking in that range. And so we want you to, to be able to give prizes away that makes sense with. Attraction books, we're almost done with them. We have sold just 8 less than what we've sold in past years to meet our goal of raising $1,000 for our club. If anybody hasn't bought an attraction book that's bought them in years past, please consider buying one. Harley's email address is in my email from this week, and you can send him an email to buy them, and he's great. He will deliver it right to you. Rotary masks. We've got a few more of Bo's Rotary masks, and if you're interested in those, you'll recall they're just $10 a piece. I wear mine all the time and have a whole set of them for the whole week. So if you want to do that, that's another way.
Yours? I bought 2 and I still don't have them.
And Bo, I'm sure if Bo is here, he'll hear you, but I would email Bo, Ann. That happened to at least one other member, and they got them right away. They all went out in the mail. I know Bo told me probably about 10 days ago. So if you don't have it, there's either a glitch with the mail, or he had the wrong address, or something got mixed up. Talk to Bo directly.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thanks. And anybody else, obviously the same thing. So that's it for, nope, Charlotte has an announcement. She had put it over here in group chat. Charlotte, you want to say something real quick about One Love?
Yeah, this isn't a club event, but I just put the information in chat. One Love is having their second go round of collecting foods, and last time they've had 62 families, which amounted to like 300 people. So it's a great thing. They're partnering with Grace Abounds, and it's this weekend. The drop-off's on Saturday or Sunday morning. You can do it too before the event, before they come and pick up food. Okay, that's it.
Charlotte, thanks so much. So to be clear, it's not endorsed by Rotary, but it looks like a good event, and anything our members could do to help would be helpful for them. Awesome. And I wanted to mention Wilbur, but we've talked about Wilbur. He's awesome, and I can't wait to see him back here so we can honor him in person. And that's it. We got past the easy part, the slow part of the meeting, and we're going to go on to the exciting part. We do have a wonderful guest speaker today. And Albert, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce her.
Thank you, Robbie. It is with a great deal of pleasure today that I want to introduce to the club and introduce to many of you. Some of you may have already gotten to know her, but Barb Dalessandro and Guy Gaster. Barb was just backtracking a little bit, something not as significant as the battleship in World War II, but is our participation, Wilmington selection, as a film for the film industry. And we really haven't had a program on this in quite some time. And Barb Dalessandro, who's going to be part of our program today, has been involved in the film studio. I got talking to her about it, her participation as pretty much in directing and producing. And then Guy Gaster is going to participate along with her. He's linked in also. And he's connected and working with the legislature, which obviously is a big part of the funding for the film industry. So I'm going to turn it over to Barb at this time and look forward to her presentation and Guy's participation. Welcome to Wilmington Rotary, folks.
Thank you so much. Guy and I are both very excited to be here and to talk to you about the future of filmmaking in Wilmington. All the crew here is very, very excited about the future. Right now, we actually have 3 shows that are currently all prepping or shooting, and I'll give you some details on those. And we expect that come January, we're going to even get flooded with more work. COVID put we were already doing so much work throughout the nation, globally, because there are so many venues now that are just requiring a lot of programming, and COVID has affected them all. So there's already a backlog, and besides the fact that we have now become very popular again as an incentive state, we're looking forward to a fantastic 21. Meanwhile, what's happening here let me tell you a little bit more about myself too. I moved here when Dino had the studio. So I've been here since 1985. So even though I go all around the country working, I still very proudly call Wilmington my home base. So some of the shows that are shooting right now, Scream 5 is a feature film that has started prepping, has been prepping for a couple months now, and they plan on starting to shoot toward the end of September, around September 24th. And that will be working until November. And then we have the USS Christmas, which is a Hallmark Christmas movie. Again, they were very, very delayed, and they're doing one here and they're doing one in Charlotte to catch up before Christmas. And that actually starts shooting today. So you're going to start seeing, you know, all the trucks and lights that everybody's become familiar with around town again. And Hightown. Hightown is a series that is already prepping here. They'll start shooting in sometime October 19th to 23rd, I think. And this was a project that was shooting the first year in New York, but the studio wanted to, again, get a little bit more bang for their buck. And they put together a proposal and have brought that for the second series here to North Carolina, which is fantastic. So that will be going actually until probably February. So again, right now we have so many crews, so many people that are working. Everyone's very excited to be back at work. I'm just going to very briefly tell you a little bit about the things that make Wilmington so popular. Number one, we have stage space. Probably most people have definitely heard of Screen Gem Studios, but Screen Gem Studios is 10 sound stages. One of them has the 5th largest water tank in the world. Stage 10 is probably the size of 3 football fields. Then we have smaller ones, you know, with that. But just having stage space is very, very valuable, especially now during these COVID times. Studios are really emphasizing that locations are very difficult to do with COVID. And so the more if they can do as much stage work as possible, they are very pro doing that. So having stage space available is going to make Wilmington an even added incentive. We have a lot of local crew. Several years ago, we had a big exodus of people heading to Atlanta. And we are really missing almost a generation of people because it was mostly the young people that went that had no commitments to Wilmington. So we're still trying to build that up now and to, you know, bring in more and more people to the business. And that is kind of the egg and the, you know, the chicken and the egg thing, which comes first, because to get people to stay here in Wilmington and work, you have to make sure that there's consistent product to keep them employed. And that definitely looks like it is starting to happen again. The other great thing we have in Wilmington is that the union that employs most of our crew has an added ability to do regional hires. For an additional stipend, only a stipend per day, we can employ someone from Charlotte or Savannah or Charleston as a local. And that helps the budget tremendously. It helps also just keep our people in the area working. And we take great advantage of that. And then, of course, the other thing is the incentives, which Guy is going to talk a little bit more about. But that is the first thing that every studio asks me when I start talking about North Carolina. The very first thing is, what is your incentive program? And so having that makes a very, very viable, it's an absolute necessity for us to keep product going in. So that's my little beginning, again, ending my end of it. The future is very bright. Everyone's very excited. We have tremendous COVID procedures that we have to employ, which if we don't run out of time, I can talk in more detail about what we have to do for COVID. But it's definitely looking like it's going to be a great end of the year and a tremendous start of 2021. So I'm passing it over to Guy now.
Great, thanks, Barbara. That's great information. And I know some of you, especially if you're in the Forest Hills area, know you're not seeing things. There are 2 houses that have snow as part of the Hallmark feature that began shooting today. So yes, you are right. There are going to be trucks and everything that people are used to seeing in Wilmington back up and going with it. So if it's okay, I want to share my screen and just a few slides for you. Is that something that you guys are, I might need
I
permission.
think you should be able to do it now. I just
All
changed
right.
the setting that should allow you to share screen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good.
So I'm going to go full screen here, and hopefully you all see that with it. So the North Carolina Film Office, just a little bit of background. We're part of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. This is a public-private partnership that was created by the legislature. But our primary responsibility here with the Film Office is to market the state to film and television and recruit greenlit productions to the state, thereby creating economic development opportunities. Our key messaging, as Barbara said, the very first question she gets is, what is your incentive program? So the 25% rebate program is our key message. You'll also hear this referred to as the grant program locally, but for marketing purposes, we say rebate a lot because that means more to the productions. We also talk about that great crew that Barbara mentioned, the infrastructure, the fact that this is not a fly-by-night industry in the state, especially in Wilmington, and our versatile locations. Again, those are the key messaging points. And we share those messaging points a variety of ways. Our main plan of action, if you will, is regular outreach to our clients. We do desk visits. Those have obviously been put on hold right now, and I'm definitely missing going and seeing folks, but have started a series of Zoom type desk visits with a lot of folks. We go to regular film festivals, and then we've done some touch marketing. So one of the pictures you'll see there features the very famous North Carolina-based Krispy Kreme donuts. We've kind of been known now suddenly for the last 2 years, have done mass deliveries of Krispy Kreme donuts out to production companies that have corresponded with some of our messaging. So a company that Barbara's worked with recently, Lionsgate Television, for example, got 25 dozen Krispy Kreme donuts sent their way, just reminding them of our 25% rebate and to keep North Carolina top of mind as they come up with new productions. So about the current incentive, just to make sure you're up to speed on this, it was created in 2015 and it's been modified 3 times. It is a true 25% rebate, and right now it's funded at $31 million annually. And there's a key designation that in particular the Wilmington legislators and the Wilmington delegation pushed for, and that was to get this funding labeled as recurring. And why that became so big is, if you'll recall, last year there was a stall with an official budget being signed and an agreement between the legislature and the governor. Because our funding was labeled as recurring, any and all recurring funds carried over and were able to remain intact. So that allowed us to continue to market North Carolina and sign up some of these new projects that are now starting to film there in Wilmington. There's no sunset on the current program. Again, another key point, as this helps particularly for television series or streaming series as they're looking at longevity. So not having a sunset clause means that they, for the most part, can count on this $31 million being available each year. And again, as I mentioned, you've probably heard this reference as a grant program. Locally, that is the legislative term for it. But in terms of marketing, we'll typically say rebate, because that is what the program actually does. It rebates the production after they've already spent their money in the state and had an official audit conducted. There are minimum spend requirements and there's a maximum payout. Again, there is a CPA review, so the money is verified that it was spent in the state. That includes, the spending includes the purchase of goods and services, but also that payroll, those North Carolinians that are working on the production, primarily behind the scenes. And then they do have to include a North Carolina logo in the end credits. So if we look at 2019, as Barbara alluded, it was a great year for the state. We had our highest direct in-state spending at $167 million. And filming took place not just in Southeast North Carolina, but all 8 of the state's prosperity zones. And I would be remiss if I didn't say we were already looking to eclipse this in 2020. And then our friend COVID-19 came and has kind of impacted us from that end. So let's take a look at that direct spending. As you can see, 2019, again, $167 million. That was the highest in 5 years. So since the change from a refundable tax credit to the grant program. And then you'll look at the very end there in white. We do have figures or estimates for calendar year 2020, and we're looking at least $108 million. So just to give you an idea in terms of COVID, when that pandemic hit, it essentially put $158 million in spending by productions on hold in the state. Since that time, we do have 5 major projects that are starting to move forward. There's the 3 that Barbara mentioned there in Wilmington. And then we have another Hallmark feature shooting in Charlotte, as well as a new television series called Delilah that is with Warner Brothers that will also shoot in the Charlotte area. So $158 million was put on hold due to COVID-19. Since that time, unfortunately, 2 projects have informed us that they will not be able to shoot this calendar year. So that's a loss of about $30 million. And then we've had close to $61 million that will actually give us a pretty hefty start to calendar year 2021. And that's a result of either the television series, Barbara mentioned Hightown, moving forward, some of their spending rolling over. We've had a feature film. If you're a horror movie fan, or maybe someone in your family is, suddenly Wilmington has become very popular. You've probably heard about Halloween filming there. That's another project that has a 3rd addition to that series that is looking to film next year. So while we are unfortunately probably won't top 2019, we do have a healthy start to 21, which I think is what also gives Barbara that reason to be optimistic. And she's not the only one on what calendar year 21 will actually do. And we talked about the money, that's the big impacts, but here are the job opportunities in the state. And despite the drop in productions, we will have close to 11,000 job opportunities made available in North Carolina, once again, related to the film industry. And I do want to say that those are directly employed by the film industry. They're also the same with the spending is directly spent. That does not include a multiplier effect. There are several small businesses in Wilmington that have helped share information on when filming gets really busy, they actually have to hire additional employees to meet with the demand. We see it in the lodging industry as well. Hotels in particular will end up having to, during the height of filming in the state, a couple of years ago, there were several hotels in Wilmington that said, we essentially are keeping what used to just be a summer staff. We're now keeping them year round because of the amount of rooms that the film industry is helping employ. So again, it's not just numbers. I'll go back to that spending, 108 million, but also job opportunities, close to 11,000 for this upcoming year. Here is my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions. And you can also find out more, particularly about our the rebate program at FilmNC.com with it. So again, as we've alluded, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about filming is that it's just in southeastern North Carolina. That is where the majority of our filming takes place, and there is good reason for that. But I do want to say that the industry as a whole is statewide, and that's part of what we continue to push and share with the legislature on. This incentive is very important, but it has the chance to benefit everyone throughout North Carolina, not just southeastern North Carolina with that. So I'll kind of turn it back over to Barbara, and certainly happy to answer any questions that the group may have, however you may want to facilitate it. Barbara?
Great. Thanks so much, Guy. You can hear me, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was great information. We're open to, Albert, did you want to go to a question and answer period?
This is Cleve. Let me step in. I usually am the sort of traffic cop for these things.
Great.
And, yes, we certainly do want to have you answer questions if people have them. And for those of you who are new, or if you've forgotten how to do this, if you want to ask a question, here's how you do it. Go down to the bottom of your screen where it says participants, click on that window, and it will pop up on your screen. And you'll see down at the bottom of it a blue hand, like that, that says raise hand. And if you want to ask a question, just click on that raise hand icon. And then when I call on you, you can go ahead and ask your question of our guests or make whatever comment you want to do. I see we have 3 people already signed up for that. So again, use the blue hand to raise your hand, and I will call on you starting with Talis Verdakis. Talis, go right ahead.
Yes, the question I have, in one of your slides, you showed that in 2011, there were 31,000 job opportunities. And then by 2015, it dropped to about 3,000 some. What was the reason? Or if there's more than one reasons, what were the reasons?
The main reason that very observant was the change in the state's incentive. We went from having, at the time, a refundable tax credit that had no annual cap. So basically the open for business sign, if you will, for North Carolina was constantly available. And then when it changed there, as you noted, we suddenly had a new program, which was the grant. At the time, it only had $10 million available. And so that we could only do a handful of projects. So that was the big change. This is one of the few incentive programs that definitely passes the but-for test. If Barbara can vouch for this, we cannot get these bigger productions to come to North Carolina if we do not have an incentive. So it definitely has shown that if you take away the incentive, you will also take away the economic impact. Barbara, any follow-up?
Yeah. Well, the only other thing I was going to say is, did you want to mention the legislative change regarding the potty bill? Did you want to talk about that, Guy? Because for us, that was a huge, like the light switch went off too.
Certainly. The other piece of legislation that had a big impact was, as we were trying to right the ship, if you will, on getting North Carolina back with a enhanced incentive. Some of you may remember House Bill 2, aka the bathroom bill, coming into becoming law, and that did have also an immediate impact. We still are feeling that, as a couple of production companies have said that even the remnants of it, which is House Bill 142, has not gone far enough, and therefore they will not film until December. That is when that bathroom bill, that last part of it, is no longer in law. So You know, that has been a big hurdle, but certainly the biggest drop was the change in the incentive program that led to the biggest numbers. But then we saw a second dip, if you will, and that was, as Barbara alluded to, House Bill 2, that bathroom bill.
Thank you very much, Guy and Barbara. We have about 5 people wanting to ask a question. If you'd like to add your name to that, just click on the raise hand button. Charlotte Davis is next, and Lynn Boney will be after her. Charlotte?
Okay, I'm just wondering, these people that are being employed locally, do you have a need for, or are you already working with a community college to train people for your needs?
Yeah. Guy, do you want me to start and then you join in? Okay, so the answer is yes. The Cape Fear community has a very good film production program. The other thing is that we're also talking with, we're a union operation. That's the other thing too. These jobs are really good jobs in terms of they offer health and pension programs. They get paid a very good wage, you know, definitely a very livable wage. And so we can't just in terms of, we also have to deal with the union in terms of bringing people in to give them experience. And there are definitely programs right now that the union is working with us, you know, the productions, to try and again, encourage more people. We're also looking to get more diversity too in our crews. And so we're also talking with the unions about how we get more, can develop more of a diverse population in our crew base.
Okay, thank you. Lynn Boney is next, followed by Ann Coffey. Lynn, you're unmuted, so go right ahead.
Thank you, Cleve. Guy, maybe you're the one I should direct my question to. I remember reading in the past the value of the dollar spent or brought to North Carolina by the movie industry, and the spin-off of that dollar, how it circulates through our local economy. And is that something that comes from, I mean, I feel sure it comes from your office maybe, but I always found that fascinating.
Yes, my office has worked with that in the past, and the Department of Commerce has. Unfortunately, what we always run into when those type of studies are done is 2 different groups asking 2 different questions. One that tends to be against incentives want to look solely at the state of North Carolina's ledger, and therefore do not take into consideration some of the spending and the benefits that go into the local communities. The other group wants to look at North Carolina as a whole, which would take into consideration how that money is spent, again, resulting in, as I mentioned, the local sign shop having to hire 2 more full-time employees, the local lodging doing that. So there's not an updated number. The last study that came out, Lynn, received a fair amount of scrutiny for what the multiplier effect was. And this is something that I've actually been fighting for on a national and international level, is coming up with a best practices way of calculating the impact of the film industry in an area, and one that the industry itself embraces, so that if you're comparing North Carolina to Georgia or even to Australia, we're all talking the same numbers and not using different, what would be called economic multipliers, and all looking at that ripple effect in the same way, if you will. So unfortunately, I can't say for every dollar it results in $4 in spending without probably getting my hand slapped or something like that. But certainly the folks in Wilmington can vouch more so than others on what it means when a production is in and the extra money that's spent and that ripple effect that it causes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you, Lynn. Ann Coffey is next, followed by Mike Bowden.
I left the snow back in Indiana, so it's kind of fun. It's snowing today. But the question I'm thinking a lot of us have, what is the absolute best way to apply to be an extra in any of the films?
Sure, I'll just speak on Wilmington then. The person that is doing the vast majority of extras is Taylor Woodall, Woodall. I'm trying to think if she has a website. Normally when we hear, let's see, I'm trying to think that, because I don't think that she has a website that just.
She mostly does it on her Facebook page, Barbara.
Yeah. There we go. And do you know is her Facebook under her name, or is it under Woodall Casting?
I think it's TW Casting, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Great. So sorry, thank you very much, Guy. I'd go to TW Casting then on Facebook and see if you can reach her that way. So a lot of times she'll also put in newspaper ads and that kind of thing, notices when she needs groups.
And if I can add, Ann or anyone else that's interested, if you want to send me an email, guy@filmnc.com, I have a list of the different casting agents that are commonly used that do the background casting with information to their Facebook pages, what they're officially called. So if you do have Facebook, that is the easiest way to see what people are looking for in terms of those background extras.
Okay, thank you for the question, Ann. Mike Bowden is next. Mike, please unmute and go right ahead.
Literally, you know where to turn when you're looking for some good-looking senior extras. No question, you can turn to Wilmington Rotary. Guy, I wanted to ask you, when you were talking about the incentive programs, what are 2 or 3 states that you think are really doing it well that you would like to emulate?
Sure. Ironically, Georgia, and I say ironically because they emulated a lot of what North Carolina was doing previously when they introduced their program. It certainly is very generous. And there are some parts that I think are very good. There are some that I don't necessarily feel are necessary, but it has definitely catapulted them to top of mind of every producer that's in the industry when they are looking at what to do. The other part, the Providences in Canada have pretty good programs, and they're actually able to incorporate some additional benefits in that are able to carry over to locals. It makes the program a little complicated on the back end, but there are definitely some benefits, such as if you're in British Columbia and shooting outside of the Vancouver area, you might get an additional uptick to someone, or an additional uptick for shooting outside of the greater Vancouver area. So, but Georgia, right now is the standard. California's program kind of makes sense, but they have to do a lottery, and that I would never want to get into that part, of having to do that lottery and waiting to see what happens with it. But again, I go back to Georgia, and part of it is selfishly because they used a lot of what was working in North Carolina and spun it to their advantage.
What are the arguments inside of the state for not using state dollars for this film incentive program?
I think overall the biggest argument is not using state dollars on any incentive program. That has continued to remain the bigger argument. So it's not just an attack or cutting out film, if you will. The other part is still trying to fight that this is only something that benefits southeastern North Carolina. We continue to hear that, even though we show filming in other parts of the state taking place, it's still viewed by a lot of folks as something that is very Wilmington specific.
Okay, thank you, Mike, for that question. Rob Zappel is next. Rob, unmute and go right ahead.
Thanks, Cleve. Guy, thanks for the kind of detailed and Barbara, description of what's going on here locally. Back to the tax credit issue versus the grant issue. I know that's the sticking point essentially for a lot of film production companies here. And can you give me a sense of what your feel is in the legislature to be able to free that up so that, in essence, the way I understand it, is in a true tax credit, you shoot the film and then you apply for those those numbers or those items that you've used in the shooting of it. In the grant program, you've got to lay all that out up front and then get reimbursed. And the problem with a industry like the film and television industry, it's changing day by day, literally, and decisions that happen sometimes in mid-stride can change what you started out with sometimes less than a month ago or even a week ago or sometimes that morning. So do I have that right, Guy? And if so, how do we explain that, or what kind of luck have you had in explaining that to the legislatures?
Sure. So you're right in that the grant program now, a production has or agrees to an award maximum up front, whereas the refundable tax credit program before, you just came in and started shooting, and whatever your number was at the end, you were essentially getting 25%. Now it is somewhat that, but there is a per project cap. Barbara, I don't think you ran into this, but on your show, I mean, they definitely have to take the budget, and let's say that they were expecting to get $500,000 back per episode. If something did go over, there was money possibly left on the table. Barbara is an expert with this, and there's something called contingency funds that productions will add in to try and make up for if there's a big spend somewhere. And I very upfront say, please include contingency in your budgets with that. But you're absolutely right in that a project could come in and think they were only going to spend $10 million, and then for whatever reason, it increased to 12, and they could leave money on the table, if you will.
Which is exactly what we do. We usually add a contingency because exactly what you said happens. So we know, okay, we're going to do a certain percentage, and this is for the what if something happens. Now we don't get that money automatically back. We still have to prove that we spent it toward the project, but it protects us just in that case.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
And Cleve, I did text with Taylor, and I put on the chat where they could apply to be a background person.
Right, I was just going to mention that to people. We actually have a couple of comments. We had Marcia Morgan thank you for the explanation of the incentive or rebate. If you'd like to see the URLs, the websites that Barbara is talking about, please just click on the chat window and look all the way down to the bottom. She's actually got two there. Taylor's website is one, and Woodall Casting is the other. So take a look at that if you're at all interested. It's right there in the chat window. I don't see any more hands up. I don't see any more comments. So I want to thank Barbara and Guy for a really entertaining program. This is something we've all wondered about. And I see Anne LaRue is applauding that also. So thank you both for doing that. I'm going to turn it back to our president, Robbie, to close this meeting out.
All right, Guy, Barbara, thanks so much for being here. That was a lot of information to take in and broken down where even I can understand it. So that was a big deal. Thank you. All right. If anybody, I'm going to leave just a couple seconds, be quiet. If anybody has anything for the good of the club, please speak up. All right, or forever hold your peace. Thank you all for being here again. This was a great meeting. We're ending right on time. I am going to
Robbie, maybe past President Steve Yates might want to mention about his Williston School Zoom meeting this afternoon. First time I'll ever Zoom twice in the same day.
Absolutely. I think he's unmuting himself. Steve?
Can't hear you, Steve. Can you unmute?
Oh, actually, thank you for bringing that up, Mike. I'm just having a limited number of people on the Williston Committee meeting this afternoon to talk about the future of our Legacy Committee. They have interim principal is there now, and we have a brand new principal coming in mid-October that will be the permanent principal. And we're going to meet about 4:30 for those that have been invited. We're not excluding anybody. We're just trying to get a core group going, and then I'll take it and expand it from there.
Awesome, Steve. Thanks for doing that. I know you got a big moving target with that legacy project this year. Thanks for keeping
Yeah.
on. All right, I have, for all the guests and everybody else in the club, I have posted our 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. And if you'll unmute yourself, lots of unmuting to be done. All right. We will start with the 4-way test, and here it goes. The 4-way test of the thing we think, say, and do. First.
Is it the truth?
Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it build
better
friendship?
And fourth. Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Hooray! Thanks, everybody, for being here. Have a great week, and email me if you have anything for next week's meeting. I look forward to seeing you back here next week.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, Robbie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.